When you use AI for work, the output becomes part of your reputation. Every email or plan or document that it helps create is going to reflect back on you. That is why clarity in your prompt matters, because people who build a habit of writing good, clean, structured prompts are the ones getting an edge in their career. Their everyday work is standing out. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be someone who's just writing sloppy prompts, because that means we will be putting out average work or worse, inaccurate results, and that reflects poorly on us. So in this video, I want to show you 3 moves that instantly sharpen anything that you do with AI. How to turn scattered thoughts into clean inputs with a thought clarifier, how Markdown formatting makes your instructions crystal clear to the model, and how context docs let AI work with your knowledge instead of just the generic internet data. Before you prompt, let's start with thought clarifiers. Have you ever tried to explain something complicated, or maybe like an awkward talk with a friend or an idea at work, and the words just didn't come out right? It's like you knew what you meant, but when you said it, it wasn't making sense. Well, the same thing happens with our prompting. If we're not clear on what we want, then the model has no chance of figuring it out. And large language models don't understand the way that people do. They are predicting based on patterns in your words. So if you're not coming through clearly, if you're rambling with some half-formed ideas, then the model's just going to guess and probably miss what you meant. So that's why I like to use what I call a thought clarifier. Before I even start prompting, I run messy ideas through a separate chat and I sort them out there. The thought clarifier's job is to take whatever you throw at it, so scattered or incomplete or just loosely connected thoughts, and it reshapes them into a clear structure that the model could actually work with. So it's just like a translator between your messy brain and the AI. Here's how it works. First, it restates the gist of what you meant in 2 sentences. So it just is going to confirm that it got it right. Then it asks what point of view you want. Do you want first person, second person, or third? And then next it asks what format you're aiming for. Is this an AI prompt you're writing, an email, a short document? Once it has all those things, it delivers a clear, structured version of whatever you meant, whatever you put in. Now, this applies to a lot of different situations, whether that's sorting out your own thoughts, trying to process how you're feeling about a situation, planning what to say to others, any kind of writing or content creation, planning a project, solving a problem where you have to break something down into smaller pieces. But the key lesson is that prompting is a 2-step exchange. So first I have to sort it out with myself until I know what I mean, and only then do I have the clarity to send it to a model. And if you merge those steps, I think you end up paying twice, because you're burning tokens and you're spending time fixing those bland results. Sloppy prompts are going to put you on the same level as a casual user. But when your prompts are really clear, it totally raises the quality of everything that you get back. Now let's move on to the second tool, which is formatting. We often chat with AI the way that we text our friends. We're piling our thoughts into a paragraph, but whenever we dump a big block of sentences in, the model has to work harder to untangle what you mean, and it ends up guessing. It starts to get things wrong, or worse, it could totally make stuff up. Computers, you have to remember, don't understand like people. They handle structure and they handle code far better. So here's the fix: formatting your prompts with Markdown. Markdown just acts like punctuation, just like you would use commas and periods and line breaks whenever you're organizing words. Markdown does that for your prompts. It divides it into sections, and then the AI can parse it a lot better, and it can follow your request the way that you intended. We're going to look at 2 tools, Markdown and XML. Each one of them works in a different scenario, but once you know when to use them, you will never go back to unstructured text. So Markdown is the simplest way to add structure. 1 pound sign makes a headline, 2 pound signs makes a subhead, 3 pound signs would make a 3rd level heading, and so on. Each step can be nested deeper and deeper using those pound signs. Asterisks can be used to create bullet points. Double asterisks can be used to make words bold. And the beauty of Markdown is that it creates this hierarchy that the model is going to instantly recognize. Headings, subheadings, subpoints and details, so it understands what you want to emphasize. And the best part is that you don't actually have to know how to write markup yourself. You can just paste a draft of a prompt into a separate chat and it'll structure everything there for you. Now, most of the time, Markdown is enough to give your prompt that structure that it needs, but sometimes you need to be more precise, and that's where XML comes in. Think of it as a way to put labels around each part of your prompt so that the model knows exactly what's what. Research shows that XML is especially helpful whenever your prompt has multiple sections, like you have context and instructions and examples. Now, writing in XML is pretty simple. You just wrap each section in a tag. So for example, around the context section, you would do an open angle bracket, context, close angle bracket. And then at the end of that section, you'd add a closing tag, which is the exact same text you had before, except with a slash in front of the word. So see how when we add these XML tags, what it's doing is it's framing each of our sections nicely. The model will absolutely not get confused because you're basically hard coding exactly where one instruction ends and another one starts. And by the way, whenever you get into more advanced automations and AI agents, this is the kind of language that you will see. So for example, whenever you need the model to output something that a machine can read later, like for tools or APIs, that's when you see a lot more of that type of Markdown and XML. But here's the rule of thumb. I like to start with Markdown. It's lightweight, it works for most situations. I've gotten to the point now where I pretty much do every prompt I write in Markdown. I find it works better. And then you can switch to XML whenever you need firm boundaries and more complex instructions. Finally, number 3, let's talk about context documents. Think about all the little things that you do every day at your desk. You're solving problems, you're planning projects, writing documents, sending messages, and every one of those things that you do depends on knowledge. And a lot of that knowledge lives in your head. We call that tacit knowledge, which is the wisdom that you've built through experience that's hard to explain or write down. Here's the problem though. Large language models don't know any of that unless you give them context. On their own, they're stuck with that broad and generic and often outdated training data. That's why their answers sometimes could sound close, but not quite right to what you were looking for. There's another limitation too, which is that GPTs or LLMs, they really don't remember. Sure, some platforms now offer a kind of memory across conversations, but it's spotty. There's always going to be gaps, which means that the model could lose track of some of those important details about your projects. And speaking of your projects, the model has zero organizational knowledge. It doesn't know your company, your customers, your initiatives, unless you supply it with that info. That is where context documents come in. So you want to add files and references alongside your prompt so that the model can work with the same knowledge that you do. Instead of waiting on it to guess, the model is going to work from that same foundation that you have. It's going to give you outputs that are sharper and just more relevant to the context of your projects. Most people already get the basics here, but if you're drafting an email about a vacation policy, you would upload the employee handbook, right? That's an obvious one-to-one link. But don't stop there. Upload project briefs and slide decks, meeting notes, process docs, past examples. Even open a separate chat and have the model help you create a context doc that's tailored to your project. It will do that for you. So anything that you use to guide yourself can guide the AI too. Just remember that the model is not going to know what you don't give it. So those are your 3 moves. Clarify your thoughts before your prompt, structure your words with Markdown, and feed the model the same knowledge that you are relying on through the use of context docs. If you pick one of these and try it in your very next prompt, you will notice the difference immediately, and you'll separate yourself from the people who are still hoping that the model figures them out.